Let them scream. The batteries die before they do. Colonel Aaron Vance said it with a smile, and then he reached across the console and shut off the rescue channel with 2 fingers cutting a wounded ranger's voice in half, mid-word like snipping a wire. 23 men buried alive in a frozen valley by a stroke of his hand. He'd done it before. 6 years ago, he'd called artillery down on his own reconnaissance team, then walked into a records room with their files and walked out with nothing but ash on his hands. He never knew one of them crawled out of that snow. She was listening tonight. If a story about betrayal, courage, and one voice that refused to stay buried is worth your next 2 hours, please subscribe and stay with me all the way to the end. And do me one favor, leave a comment telling me what city you're listening from so I can see how far this story travels tonight. Captain Ryan Mitchell had been shouting into the handset for 4 minutes and 11 seconds before he understood that nobody was ever going to answer. He knew it the way you know a man is dead before the medic says it. Something in the air changes. Something in your own chest goes quiet and cold and honest. Command, this is Ranger Actuals transmitting in the blind on primary. We are 23 souls, 4 wounded, 2 critical position, Kestrel Valley grid, 472. Extraction bird is destroyed. Say again, extraction bird is destroyed. We need air. We need anything. We need a voice. Anybody. Over. Static. Not even angry static. Soft static. Patient static. The sound of a room where the lights have been turned off and the door has been locked from the outside. Sergeant Daniel Brooks crouched 2 feet from him with the radio's antenna cable wrapped twice around his fist like he could squeeze an answer out of the wire. Brooks was 34 years old and had never in his life looked scared in front of his captain. He looked scared now. Sir, Brooks said. Sir, the set's fine. I checked the set. I know the set's fine. The battery's at 80%. The antenna's up. We've got line of sight to the ridge relay. Brooks. The set is fine, sir. I know, Mitchell said. That's the problem. Behind them in the shallow bowl of rock and snow, they'd been calling a perimeter for the last 2 hours. A young private named Kowalski was making a sound that Mitchell would hear in his sleep for the rest of his life. Not a scream. Kowalski was too well trained to scream. It was worse than a scream. It was the small, embarrassed, apologetic noise a 20-year-old makes when he is trying very hard not to bother anybody, while a piece of shrapnel the size of a house key sits in his abdomen and his body slowly figures out that it is losing. Doc Alvarez had both hands pressed on him. Alvarez had been pressing for 40 minutes. Talk to me, Doc, Mitchell called. He's got maybe 3 hours if I keep him warm, Alvarez said. He's got maybe 40 minutes if I don't. And the sergeant, Reyes is worse. How much worse? Alvarez didn't answer. That was the answer. The wind came up over the eastern lip of the valley and dumped a sheet of snow across the perimeter, and for 8 or 9 seconds, nobody could see anybody. Mitchell put his glove over the handset's mouthpiece and closed his eyes and did the arithmetic he had been refusing to do since the helicopter went up in a ball of orange 40 minutes after dropping them. 23 men, 411 rounds of 5.56 across the whole element because they'd packed light for a 12-hour recon. 2 grenades, 1 machine gun with a belt and a half. 11 miles of vertical, frozen, unmapped Alaskan mountain between them and the nearest road in the storm that was, according to the last weather brief they'd received before the world went silent, going to get significantly worse before it got better. And out there in the white, somewhere between 200 and 400 meters north, a force of men who had known exactly where the Rangers would land, exactly when, and exactly how many. That last part was the piece Mitchell kept turning over in his hands like a stone he couldn't put down. Sir. Lieutenant Cole Harding came sliding in beside him, breathing hard, snow packed into the seams of his gear. Harding was 26 and had been Mitchell's executive officer for 8 months and was on this particular night doing a better job of holding himself together than most men twice his age. North perimeter, they're not pushing, they're just sitting there. How many at Bergstrom counted 11 muzzle flashes in the first contact? He thinks there's more behind the ridge. Why aren't they pushing? Sir, Mitchell looked at him. Cole, they've got the numbers. They've got the ground. They've got us cold and low on ammo. Why are they sitting? Harding's jaw worked. Because they don't have to. Say it again. Because they know nobody's coming, sir. Harding said it quietly, and then he said the rest of it because he was the kind of officer who finished the sentence even when the sentence hurt. They know something we don't. Mitchell nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, that's what I keep thinking too. He keyed the handset one more time. Any station, this is Ranger Actual on emergency guard. We are declaring a mass casualty situation. We have wounded. We are surrounded. If any station copies this transmission, respond by any means. Over. Nothing. Any station, this is Ranger Actual. Please? He heard himself say the word please and he hated it, and he said it again anyway. Please, there are 23 of us out here. The static didn't change. It never once changed. It was the most disciplined silence Mitchell had ever heard in his life. And later, when he was standing in front of a committee under a bank of fluorescent lights with a lawyer at each elbow, he would realize that a silence that perfect is not an accident. A silence that perfect is a decision. Somebody makes it. Somebody has to make it in a warm room with a cup of coffee going cold at their elbow. Brooks was staring at the radio. "Sergeant," Mitchell said. Brooks didn't move. "Danny." Brooks flinched like he'd been slapped. Nobody called him Danny. Mitchell had called him Danny exactly twice in 6 years, and both times had been at a funeral. "There's a frequency," Brooks said. "What?" "There's a frequency, sir." Brooks's face had gone strange. Not scared anymore. Something else. Something almost embarrassed, like a grown man about to admit he still checked under the bed. "I heard about it from a guy. Warrant Officer Camo retired out about 4 years back. We were drinking, he was drunk, I was drunk. He told me a story and I told him he was full of it, and he got real quiet, and he wrote a number on a napkin and told me to never use it unless I was already dead." Brooks. "He said if you're already dead, sir, it costs you nothing to try." Mitchell felt the cold in his fingers and his teeth in the back of his neck. Out on the perimeter, Kowalski made the small, apologetic sound again. "What's the frequency?" Mitchell said. Brooks hesitated. "Sergeant, what is the frequency?" "Sir, the story he told me." "I don't care about the story." "You should," Brooks said, and there was something in his voice that made Mitchell actually stop. "Sir, respectfully, you should care about the story, because the story is that 6 years ago, a whole element went up on that frequency, and every last one of them came off the map. Not KIA, not MIA, off the map. Files gone, names gone. He said he watched a lieutenant colonel walk into a records room with a folder and walk out with nothing. He said the ones who knew got told individually by name to never speak about it again, and every single one of them didn't, including him for 4 years until he got drunk enough to write a number on a napkin. And the call sign," Brooks's mouth moved before the sound came out. "Ghost 7. The wind took the words away almost as fast as he said them, but Mitchell heard them, and so did Harding, and so did the 2 Rangers pulling security 6 feet away, and Mitchell watched all of them go very, very still. "You've heard it," Mitchell said to Harding. It wasn't a question. "Everybody's heard it, sir." Harding's voice had dropped almost to nothing. "It's a ghost story. It's what guys say when they want to spook a cherry. Watch your comms, discipline, or Ghost 7 will find you. It's not real." Bergstrom's heard it too. "Sir, my dad heard it," Harding said. "My dad. He was 10th group. He told me that story when I was 19, and he told me it was a myth." Mitchell looked down at the handset in his hand. Somewhere in the back of his skull, a very calm and very sensible voice. The voice that had gotten him through 11 years and 4 deployments and 1 very bad night in a valley on the other side of the world, was explaining to him in reasonable terms that he was about to transmit an emergency distress call on an unauthorized, unlogged, possibly non-existent frequency, and that if anybody was ever going to court-martial him for anything, it was going to be this. And then Doc Alvarez said from 20 feet away in a flat voice, "Sir Reyes just stopped tracking," and the sensible voice shut up. "Give me the number," Mitchell said. Brooks gave him the number. Mitchell's gloved thumb was clumsy on the dial. He had to try twice. The second time he got it and he looked up, and every man close enough to hear was looking at him, and he understood with a kind of terrible clarity that whatever happened in the next 30 seconds was going to be a thing these men told their grandchildren, or a thing nobody ever knew because there would be nobody left to tell it. He keyed the handset. "Ghost 7, he said, "this is Ranger Actual. If anyone is listening, we need help." And then the longest 30 seconds of Ryan Mitchell's life. Static. He counted. He didn't mean to count, but he counted, 5, 6, 7. Brooks had his eyes shut. Harding's hand was on his rifle, but his hand wasn't moving. 12, 13. Somewhere behind them, wind hit rock and made a sound like a door closing. 19, 20. Mitchell felt the thing in his chest let go. The last small, stupid hope. He'd known. Of course he'd known. He was a grown man and he had just prayed into a radio at a fairy tale. And now he was going to have to turn around and look at 22 men and tell them the truth, which was that they were going to fight here, and most of them were going to die here, and the wounded were going to go first, and there was no God in this valley, and no help on any frequency, and no 28, 29. The static broke. It didn't crackle. It didn't hiss. It just stopped the way a room goes quiet when someone walks in, and into that space came a voice, a woman's voice, level, unhurried, almost bored, except it wasn't bored. It was something underneath bored, something that had been sitting so still for so long that it had forgotten how to hurry. Ghost 7 listening, she said. Who needs me? Nobody moved. Mitchell would think about that moment for the rest of his life, and he would never be able to describe it correctly. Not the fear, not the relief. Something older than both. 23 professional soldiers, men who had been shot at on 3 continents, men who had carried their friends' bodies down mountains, and every single one of them stood in the snow like children hearing a floorboard creak upstairs in an empty house. Brooks whispered, "Oh my God." Harding said nothing at all. His mouth was open. Mitchell realized his thumb had come off the key. He put it back. Ghost 7, this is Ranger Actual. His voice came out wrong. He cleared his throat and made it come out right. We are 23 personnel, 4 wounded, 2 critical in Kestrel Valley Grid, 472188. Our extraction was destroyed. Our comms are dead on every official channel. We are surrounded by an unknown force of at least 11, likely more. We have limited ammunition. Over. A pause. 2 seconds. 3. Your grid is wrong, she said. Mitchell blinked. Say again. Your grid is wrong, Ranger Actual. You're not at 472188. You're 400 meters south and about 60 meters lower in the drainage under the east saddle. Your map has that whole basin off by a quarter grid square. It's had that error since 1994, and nobody's ever fixed it because nobody who uses that map ever comes back to complain. Mitchell looked at Harding. Harding was already yanking out the map, already tilting his red lens over it, already going pale. Sir, Harding said. Sir, the contour lines. The contour lines we should be able to see the saddle from here. We can't see the saddle from here. She's right, Brooks said. Oh my God, she's right. We've been calling in the wrong grid for 2 hours. Ranger Actual, the voice said. Confirm. Mitchell keyed up. Confirmed. Ghost 7, our grid was wrong. Correcting now. Good, she said. That's why nobody found you. Doesn't matter now. Nobody was coming anyway. The words landed like a hand on his chest. Say again. You heard me. Ghost 7, we have an active medevac request on file. You have nothing on file, she said. And for the first time, there was something in her voice, a small hard edge, like the corner of a blade showing under a cloth. Ranger Actual, listen to me carefully because I'm only going to explain this once, and then we're going to be busy. Your request never went anywhere. Your medevac was never generated. Your emergency beacon has been transmitting for 2 hours and 11 minutes, and it has been received, and it has been acknowledged, and it has been set aside. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Mitchell's throat had gone dry. No, he said. Yes, you do. Ghost 7. You've known for at least an hour, she said. That's why your voice sounds like that. That's why you're on this frequency. Men don't call ghosts until they've already figured out that the living aren't answering. Mitchell stood in the snow with the handset against his ear and his men watching him, and he could not think of a single thing to say. 3 rules, she said. What? 3 rules, Ranger Actual, and then we start. Rule 1, saying, do not try to find me. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not with thermals, not with the drone, not with a favor from a friend at a desk. You will not find me, and you will waste time you don't have, and men will die in the time you waste. Rule 2, when I give you an instruction, you execute it. Immediately. Completely. You do not ask why. If I tell you to move, you move. If I tell you to stop breathing, you hold your breath. Rule 3. She paused. When this is finished, you forget this frequency existed. You don't log it. You don't mention it in a debrief. You don't tell your wife. You take it with you and you put it in the ground. Mitchell looked at Harding. Harding looked back at him with an expression Mitchell had never seen on his face before. Ghost 7, I don't take orders from voices on unlogged frequencies, Mitchell said. No, she agreed, you don't. I need to know who I'm talking to. You need to know how many rounds you have left. Ghost 7. How many, Captain? He didn't answer. 400 and change across 23 men, she said. That's my guess. Recon package 12-hour profile light load, 2 frags, 1 240 with a belt and change, and your gunner's been rationing it, which is why they haven't pushed you yet, because they've been counting your bursts and they know exactly what you've got left too. Brooks made a small sound. How the hell, Mitchell said and stopped. Because I've been listening to you for 2 hours, Ghost 7 said. Because you've been screaming on an open channel like it's a 1968 and everyone in that tree line speaks English. Because the man commanding the element on your North Ridge has been reporting your ammunition status up his chain every 15 minutes. And he's been doing it on a frequency he thinks is secure, and it isn't and hasn't been for 6 years. Silence in the bowl. Nothing but the wind. Captain, she said, and her voice changed slightly, not softer exactly, but lower. I've been sitting here for 2 hours listening to you beg. I heard you say please. I've been waiting for you to be finished. Mitchell felt heat come up the back of his neck, despite the cold. You could have said something. You weren't ready to listen. I have men dying. I know, she said. I heard the young one. He's trying not to make noise. That's the worst kind. And something in the way she said it, some small crack in the flatness, made Mitchell's stomach turn over, because it was not the voice of a stranger observing a casualty. It was the voice of someone who had heard that specific sound before more than once and had never gotten free of it. Rules, she said. Yes or no, Ranger Actual. Harding grabbed his sleeve. Sir, wait. He pulled Mitchell down, put his mouth next to his ear, and the words came out fast and low. Sir, think about it. Somebody knew our infill. Somebody knew our LZ. Somebody knew our extraction route well enough to have a launcher sitting on it. Whoever burned us has to be inside our comms. And now a voice on a dead frequency knows our ammo count, our casualty status, and our grid better than we do. Harding swallowed. Sir, what if she's them? Mitchell held perfectly still. It was a good question. It was, in fact, exactly the right question. The question a good officer was supposed to ask, and Mitchell had already asked it himself, and he had already arrived at the answer, and the answer was very simple and very ugly. Cole, he said, if she's them, what changes? Harding opened his mouth. What changes, Mitchell said again. Tell me, if she's the enemy, and she's been listening for 2 hours, and she's got everything she needs, and she's sitting on a hill with our ammo count in her pocket. He gestured at the white, at the ridge, at the 11+ men out there who hadn't pushed. What is she waiting for? Harding's mouth closed. They don't need to trick us, Mitchell said. They need to wait. That's all. They wait 4 hours and we're done. Nobody who's already won bothers to lie. Harding stared at him, and then slowly he nodded. Mitchell keyed the handset. Ghost 7 Ranger Actual. Answer to your rules is yes on 2 and yes on 3. He paused. Rule 1 is negotiable. A long silence. And then something extraordinary happened. She laughed. It was not a big laugh. It was barely a sound at all. One short exhale through the nose, the ghost of a laugh, the way a person laughs who hasn't had a reason to in a very long time and has half forgotten the mechanics of it. But every man close enough to hear the handset heard it, and Brooks looked up sharply because that one small human sound did more to convince him she was real than everything else she'd said. Rule 1 isn't for me, Captain, she said. It's for you. I'll take that under advisement. You do that. A beat. Now shut up and listen, because in 4 minutes the wind is going to drop, and when it drops, you're going to lose your only advantage, and I need you moving before that happens. We're not moving, Mitchell said. I've got 2 criticals. Reyes can't be carried over that terrain hill. Captain, he will die on the litter, Ghost, even I am telling you as. Captain. Her voice cut through his like a wire. Rule 2, what did we just agree on? Then Mitchell's jaw locked. You gave me your word 90 seconds ago, she said. You want to renegotiate already. I'm not going to kill my own man to satisfy. Your man is going to die in that hole, she said. Not maybe, not probably. He's going to die in that hole in the next 11 minutes because the reason they haven't pushed isn't discipline, and it isn't patience, and it isn't your machine gun. It's because they've been waiting for their mortar section to walk up from the south trail, and the mortar section arrived 9 minutes ago, and they have been laying their base plate for the last 4. The whole world stopped. Say again, Mitchell whispered. You are sitting in a bowl, she said. You picked it because the walls give you cover from direct fire. And that was correct, and it was the best decision available to you. And it is about to kill every single one of you. You are in the perfect shape for indirect. You are in a bathtub, Captain. And in about 6 minutes, somebody is going to drop something in the bathtub with you. Doc Mitchell was already shouting. Doc, get Reyes on the litter right now, right now. Move. Sir, he can't. Move Alvarez, Captain. Ghost 7's voice absolutely level, cutting into the chaos like it was the only calm thing left in the state of Alaska. Look at your 9 o'clock. There's a crack in the rock wall about 2 meters wide. You probably think it's a dead end. Yes, we cleared it. It's a dead end. It goes back 6 meters and stops. It doesn't stop. It turns. It's a hard left, and it's narrow enough that a man your size has to take his ruck off. And that's why your team called it a dead end, because they looked from the mouth and saw a wall. It's not a wall, it's a corner. Go around it, and it opens into a drainage that runs 110 meters northwest under an overhang. It's covered from above. Indirect can't touch you in there. Mitchell was already running. Bergstrom, the crack. 9 o'clock, take Kelly and go around the corner and tell me what you see. Sir, we cleared. Go, 20 seconds. 25. And then Bergstrom's voice came back out of the dark, and there was something in it that Mitchell had never heard from him before, a kind of religious terror. Sir, it turns. It turns, sir. There's a whole drainage back here. There's an overhang. Sir, how did you? Mitchell keyed the handset. His hands were shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. Ghost 7 Ranger actual. Confirmed on the drainage. We're moving. Wounded first. Wounded first, she agreed. Gunner last. Tell your 240 to fire 1 burst of 6 at the North Ridge before he displaces. Not to hit anything, just so they hear him and think you're still in the bathtub. Understood. Captain, go. When you get around that corner, you're going to want to stop and count heads. A pause. Don't. Keep moving until I tell you. You'll count them later. Something about the way she said it put a cold finger on Mitchell's spine. Ghost 7, how do you know about that corner? Static. Ghost 7. The wind moved, snow came down the valley in a long white curtain. Ghost 7, how do you know about that corner? That's not on any map. That's not on any imagery. There's no way you have that from a survey. You'd have to have walked it. Silence. 4 seconds. 5. Then so quietly he almost missed it. Move your end, Captain. Have you walked it? Move your 10. Ghost 7, have you been in that drainage? And she said in a voice that had gone somewhere else entirely, somewhere far away and a long time ago, I've been in every drainage in these mountains. Then before he could answer, before he could ask, before he could do anything at all, except stand there with his mouth open and his heart going like a hammer, 4 minutes and the wind drops. 3 minutes 50. The line went dead. Mitchell turned around. 22 men were looking at him. Alvarez had Reyes half onto the litter. Brooks had the radio in his arms like a baby. Harding was standing with his rifle at low ready and an expression that was somewhere between terror and something dangerously close to hope. You heard her, Mitchell said. Nobody moved. I said you heard her. Mitchell's voice cracked across the bowl like a rifle shot. Litters first, criticals go first. Bergstrom holds the corner. Gunner fires 6 and displaces. We are gone in 90 seconds. Move. And they moved. God help them. They moved because there was nothing else left to do. And because somewhere out in that white nothing, there was a voice that knew a corner that wasn't on any map. And after 2 hours of screaming into a silence that had been chosen for them by somebody in a warm room, one impossible voice was better than none. They got Reyes around the corner at minute 2. They got Kowalski around at minute 240. The gunner fired his 6 rounds at minute 3 and 10, and the North Ridge answered with a long, ragged volley into an empty bathtub, and the gunner grinned like a lunatic and grabbed his gun and ran. Mitchell went last. He always went last. He had 1 boot on the rock at the mouth of the crack when the wind dropped. It dropped exactly the way she said it would, All at once, the whole roaring world going still between one breath and the next, and in the sudden silence, Ryan Mitchell heard a sound he had heard exactly twice before in his life, and never wanted to hear again. The soft, almost polite thump of a mortar leaving a tube. He didn't remember deciding to run. He remembered the rock scraping his shoulder as he went around the corner that wasn't a corner. He remembered Bergstrom's hand grabbing his collar and hauling. He remembered thinking very clearly and calmly, 3 of them, that's a 3-round fire mission, they're going to walk it, and then the bowl they had been standing in for 2 hours and 11 minutes ceased to exist. The overhang shook, ice came off it in sheets. Somebody was screaming, and somebody else was praying, and Doc Alvarez was lying across Reyes with his whole body like a blanket, and the sound went on and on and on. And when it finally stopped, the air in the drainage was full of pulverized rock and the smell of burnt stone, and 23 men lay in the dark alive. All of them. Every single one. Mitchell rolled onto his back and stared up at the underside of an overhang that a voice had told him about 90 seconds before it saved his entire command, and he started helplessly to laugh, and it came out sounding almost exactly like a sob. Brooks crawled over with the radio. "Sir," he said, his face was gray with rock dust and streaked wet under the eyes. "Sir, she's back. She's asking for you." Mitchell took the handset. His hand was steady this time. He noticed that and filed it away and didn't know yet what it meant. "Ghost 7, he said. "Ranger actual. 3 rounds impacted our previous position. We are clear. We are all clear. All 23. A long pause. "Good," she said. And that was all. One word. But Mitchell had been listening to that voice for 11 minutes now, and he was starting, just barely starting to hear underneath it. And what he heard underneath that one flat syllable was a person letting out a breath they had been holding for a very long time. "Ghost 7, he said quietly. "Whoever you are, thank you. Don't. I'm going to anyway." "Captain." 23 men, Mitchell said. "You want to argue about it, argue about it. Thank you." The static hummed. Then she said, "You're not clear yet." "I know." "No," she said. "You don't. You think you're clear because you're out of the bathtub. You're not out of anything. There are 28 men on that ridge, not 11, and they didn't come here to catch you by accident. They were pre-positioned. They were in place 4 hours before your aircraft ever lifted off in a storm on a mountain waiting for a recon element that filed a route packet 11 hours ago." A pause. "Do you understand what that means, Captain Mitchell?" Mitchell's mouth was dry. "Say it," she said. "I want to hear you say it out loud because you're going to have to say it in front of a lot of people someday, and you should practice." He closed his eyes. "It means they knew," he said, louder. "It means somebody told them," Mitchell said. "It means somebody on our side gave them my men." "Yes," said Ghost 7, and then after a moment in a voice that had gone very soft and very old, "Now you know how I found out." Nobody in that drainage said a word for 11 seconds, and Ryan Mitchell counted every one of them. He counted because his own heart was going too fast, and counting was the only thing he had left to slow it down, and because he did not want to be the first man to speak after a voice on a dead frequency had just told 23 Rangers that one of their own had sold them. Harding broke first. "She's lying." He said it too loud. "Sir, she's lying. That's what they do. That's textbook. You isolate an element, you cut their comms, and then you get in their heads and you tell them their own people did it, and then they fight each other instead of you." Cole. "That is a doctrine, sir. That is a real actual doctrine. I have sat through the class, Cole. And we are standing here about to swallow it whole from a woman we have never met on a channel that doesn't exist." "Lieutenant Harding?" Harding stopped. Mitchell let the silence sit for a second so it would mean something. "You're right," he said. Harding blinked. "Sir, you're right. It is textbook. And if she wanted us fighting each other, she just did it in one sentence and it worked because look at you." Mitchell's voice stayed level. "Now use your head. If she's them, why'd she pull us out of the bathtub 90 seconds before their own mortars landed in it?" Harding's mouth worked. Nothing came out. "They fired 3 rounds into an empty hole," Mitchell said. "That's their fire mission. That's their plan. That was the whole night right there, and she took it away from them for free." He shook his head slowly. "No enemy in the history of war has ever spoiled their own ambush to build rapport." "Then who is she, sir?" And Mitchell said honestly, "I don't know." Brooks, sitting against the rock wall with the radio in his lap, said quietly, "Sir, she's still on." "What? She didn't key off." Brooks looked up. His face was gray with rock dust, and his eyes were bright and wet in a way he'd have denied later. "She's been listening to the whole thing." Mitchell felt heat crawl up his neck for the second time in 15 minutes. He took the handset. "Ghost 7. Ranger Actual." Same flat voice, nothing moved in it. "How much of that did you hear?" "All of it." "And your lieutenant is smart," she said. "He asked the right question in the wrong order. That's what young officers do. He'll grow out of it or he'll die of it." Harding close enough to hear the handset when a shade of red visible, even in the dark. "He asked a fair question," Mitchell said. "He asked whether I'm the enemy. It's the wrong question, Captain, because the answer doesn't help him. Here's the right question." A beat. "Ask me how many people knew your route packet." Mitchell's stomach turned over. "Ghost 7. Ask me. How many people knew our route packet?" "9, she said. 9 human beings on this earth had your infill, your LZ, your loiter, and your extraction corridor. Your battalion S3 and his assistant, your S2, the aviation liaison, the brigade watch officer, 2 people at the Joint Operations Center, and 2 names above them that I'm not going to say on this radio, because the second I say them, you'll believe me, and I don't want you believing me tonight. I want you alive tonight. Believing me is a different night." Mitchell held the hand set against his ear and did not answer, and in the silence he could hear very faintly something on her end. Wind, different wind, higher, thinner, the sound of wind that has nothing to break it. She was up, way up. "You're on a ridge," he said. She didn't answer. "Ghost 7, you're on high ground. I can hear the Rule 1 choice," she said. "I'm not looking for you." "You just did." "I'm a soldier," Mitchell said. "You put a sound in my ear, I'm going to place it. That's not hunting you, that's breathing." 2 seconds of nothing. Then unexpectedly she said, "That's fair?" And Mitchell thought, there it is. Something just moved in there, bro. "Captain, listen to me," she said. "You've got 4 minutes before that ridge element realizes they mortared an empty hole. When they realize it, they'll do one of 2 things. If their commander's average, he'll send a squad down to confirm the kill, and that gives you 20 minutes. If he's good, he won't bother confirming anything. He'll just push a blocking element to the northwest mouth of your drainage and cork you in like a bottle." A pause. "He's good." "How good?" "He's laid 3 base plates in 5 hours in a blizzard on frozen ground," she said. "He's good. You know him." Something happened in the static. It wasn't a sound. It was the absence of one, a hesitation with a shape to it, and Mitchell felt every hair on his arm stand up. "Move your men northwest," she said. "Now. Not in 2 minutes. Now." "Ghost 7, do you know him?" "Move." They moved. They moved because there was nothing else. And because 11 minutes ago, a voice had told them about a corner that wasn't on a map, and then a mortar had erased the ground they'd been standing on, and there was no argument in the world stronger than that. Alvarez and 2 men had Reyes on the litter and were sliding him over ice in a drainage barely wide enough for a man's shoulders, and Reyes was not making any sound at all now, which was worse than the sounds he'd been making an hour ago. Kowalski walked. God knew how, but Kowalski walked, one hand pressed into his own abdomen and the other on the shoulder of the man in front of him, and every 40 steps he said, "I'm good. I'm good," to nobody in particular. And nobody had the heart to tell him to stop. At 110 meters, the drainage opened. "Stop," said Ghost 7. Mitchell stopped so fast the man behind him hit his back. "Nobody past the mouth, not a boot, not a rifle barrel. Captain, put your right hand on the rock and do not let go of it. Talk to me. There's a man watching that opening." 23 men froze in place like a photograph. "Where?" Mitchell breathed. 210 meters, you're 11 o'clock in the scree under the broken pine. He's been there for 9 minutes. He got there before you did." Harding's whisper was almost inaudible. "How does she know that?" "He's alone," she said. "He's a scout. He's got a radio and he's cold, and he's been rubbing his hands together every 90 seconds, which is how I found him. And right now, he's the only thing standing between you and the northwest exit, and in about 4 minutes, he's going to key that radio and tell 28 men exactly where you are." Mitchell's mind moved faster than he wanted it to, running the numbers he didn't want to run. 210 meters. Blizzard. Suppressed weapon. They had none. Any shot he took would tell the ridge as loudly as the scout's radio would. I can't take him, Mitchell said, not without giving up the whole element. I know. If I send men up on him, they'll cross open ground, and I know, Captain. Then what do you want me to do? Nothing, said Ghost 7. That's the whole instruction. Nothing. Hold your men. Don't breathe hard. And in about 20 seconds, don't flinch. Mitchell felt his mouth go dry. Ghost 7, what are you? Rule 2, she said, and the frequency went quiet. Mitchell would try for years afterward to explain what those 20 seconds felt like. And he never got it right because the truth of it was stupid and small and had nothing to do with courage. It felt like standing in your own kitchen at 3 a.m, listening to a sound downstairs. It felt like being a child. 23 grown men pressed against frozen rock in the dark, all of them holding still, because a stranger had told them to. All of them absolutely certain that something was about to happen and absolutely powerless to affect it in any way. Brooks was mouthing something. Mitchell realized after a second it was the Lord's Prayer, and that Brooks probably didn't know he was doing it. 15 seconds. 10. Bergstrom whispered, Sir, I've got him. I've got the scout. Broken Pine, he's standing up. Don't shoot. Sir, he's standing up. He's got a hand on his... Bergstrom, do not shoot. He's keying his radio, Sir Raphael. Do not. The crack came across the valley like the sky splitting. One shot. One single rifle report, flat and enormous and rolling. And Mitchell's whole body jerked despite everything, despite being told, despite knowing, and 210 meters away, a man who had been about to speak into a radio simply stopped existing in an upright arrangement. Nobody made a sound. Bergstrom lowered his rifle very, very slowly, and his voice when it came was not the voice of a man who had been in the regiment for 9 years. Sir, he said. Sir, that came from behind him. Mitchell turned his head. Say again. That shot came from behind him, sir. From the far ridge. From the far side. Bergstrom's throat worked. Sir, that's gotta be 1,200 meters. In this wind, in this dark. She shot him from behind, sir. She was on the other side of him, this whole Bergstrom. How, sir? And there it was cracking open in the voice of a 9-year veteran, not fear exactly, all with the bottom falling out of it. How does somebody do that? The radio came alive. Northwest mouth is clear, said Ghost 7. Move. You've got 8 minutes before somebody misses him. They moved. At 4 minutes past the hour, they crossed the open ground and nothing killed them. At 9 minutes past, they hit the tree line. She told them to hit exactly where she said it would be, and Harding stopped counting his steps because the numbers had stopped being reassuring and started being frightening. At 14 minutes past, she told them to stop, and 11 seconds later, a 2-man patrol walked across their front at 40 meters close enough that Mitchell heard one of them cough, and neither man ever knew that 23 Rangers were lying in the snow watching them go. At 21 minutes past, she told them to turn 90 degrees left and walk into what looked to every man there like a solid wall of rock. It wasn't. It was a fold. You had to be inside it to see it. You had to have stood there. And at 28 minutes past the hour, Sergeant Daniel Brooks said the thing that had been building in the back of every skull in that column for the last half hour. And he said it out loud, and once it was out, it could not be put back. Sir, she's not shooting at them. Mitchell looked at him. Sir, listen to me. 4 shots. The commander on the ridge, then the guy with the long antenna, then that machine gun team before they even got the tripod down, then the scout. Brooks was talking fast now, and his hands were moving, and he wasn't asking. He was working it out in real time, the way a man works out something he's already seen and hasn't let himself understand. That's not defense, sir. That's not covering fire. She's not killing the closest guy or the biggest threat. She's killing a guy who's about to make a decision every single time. She's not fighting them. Then what's she doing? Harding said. Brooks looked up. She's steering them, he said. Sir, every shot she's taken has pushed them somewhere. She kills the commander, the element goes static for 8 minutes. She kills the commo guy, they can't talk to the ridge, and they default to their last order. She kills the gun team, they can't hold the saddle, and they have to come down, sir. Brooks swallowed. She's not saving us with those shots. She's building us a hallway, and the enemy's the walls. Nobody spoke. Mitchell felt something move in his chest that was not quite fear and not quite anything else. He keyed the handset. Ghost 7. Ranger Actual. My sergeant just told me you're not shooting at the enemy. He says you're moving them. A pause. Your sergeant should be an officer, she said. Is he right? There are 28 of them, and one of me, Ghost 7 said. If I fight them, I lose. Do you understand? Not maybe. There's no version where one rifle beats 28 men, so I don't fight them. Her voice didn't rise at all. That was the thing that got into Mitchell's bones later. The total absence of drama, the way she said it like she was reading a grocery list. I take away the men who make decisions, and then the rest go where they were already going to go. And I put your men where those men aren't. That's all. That's the whole trick. There's no magic in it, Captain. It's just arithmetic, and I've had a long time to do the arithmetic. How long? Silence. Ghost 7. How long have you been out here? Silence. Ghost 7. Your extraction point is compromised, she said. Mitchell stopped walking. Every man behind him stopped one after another down the whole column like a wave. Say that again. Kestrel LZ Bravo. The alternate. The one your S3 built into your packet as the fallback. Grid 511, the flat under the north face. Her voice was perfectly steady. It's compromised. Don't go there. Confirm you heard me. Go 7. How do you know that grid? Mitchell's voice had dropped into something very quiet and very dangerous. That grid is in a packet that 9 people have seen. You just told me that yourself. 9 people. So how does a voice on a dead frequency in the middle of a blizzard have my alternate extraction point? The static hummed. Answer me. Nothing. Ghost 7. I have 23 men who are alive because of you, and I am not going to walk them off a cliff on faith. You want rule 2? Then give me something. Anything. One thing. How do you know my LZ Bravo is compromised? And she said very quietly, because someone inside your command sold your location. Mitchell shut his eyes. That's not an answer, he said. That's the same thing you said an hour ago. That's not how, that's what. I'm asking you how you know. Captain, no, How do you know? And Ghost 7 said, because I've been listening to him for 6 years. The wind moved through the trees. Nobody breathed. Say that again, Mitchell whispered. You heard me. 6 years. 6 years, 4 months, and 11 days, she said. And for the first time, there was something in her voice that had weight to it, something that dragged. I know his voice. I know the way he clears his throat before he lies. I know he takes his coffee back off the desk when he's about to make a call he doesn't want a witness for. I know that when he says no assets available, he means the assets are available and he has decided that you're not worth them. A pause. And I know that 41 minutes ago he received your beacon, and I know he looked at it, and I know he set it aside because I heard him do it. Brooks made a small sound like he'd been hit. Harding said, sir, and then stopped because there was nothing to put after it. You're telling me, Mitchell said slowly, that you have been sitting on a mountain in Alaska for 6 years listening to American officers? Yes. That's, say the word captain. That's treason. Yes, Ghost 7 agreed. That's exactly what they'd call it. And when this is over, if you say my name in a room with a flag in it, that is exactly the word they will use, and they will use it fast, and they will use it loud because it's a very good word. It ends the conversation. Nobody asked what a traitor heard. A beat. That's the whole point of the word. Mitchell stood in the snow with his men behind him and could not think. Who is he said. No. Ghost 7, who is he? No. You just told me a man in an American headquarters murdered my company tonight, and you won't give me his name. That's right. Why? Because you'd say it, she said. Not tonight. Tonight you'd hold it. But at the extraction, when there's a helicopter and a warm bird and a man on the other end asking you for your status, you would say it, Captain, because you're angry and because you're honest, and that's a bad combination on an open radio. And the second you say it, he knows I exist. Her voice went very flat. He thinks I died 6 years ago. That is the only reason I'm still breathing. Do you understand? That is the only asset I have. It's not this rifle. It's not this mountain. It's that he sleeps at night. Mitchell opened his mouth, closed it. He sleeps, she said, and I've spent 6 years making sure he keeps sleeping. And you are not going to wake him up on a radio at 4 in the morning to make yourself feel better. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Then Harding quietly said the thing nobody else was going to say. Sir, ask her what she wants. Mitchell looked at him. Ask her, sir. Harding's voice was steady now. Something had changed in him in the last hour. Mitchell heard it and didn't have time to think about what it meant. Everybody wants something. She's had 6 years to want something. Ask her. Mitchell keyed the handset. Go 7, what do you want? Get your men to the tree at grid 496. That's not what I asked. That's what I answered. What do you want? Mitchell said again. You've both had 23 men on a string for 2 hours. You could have asked for anything. You haven't asked for a single thing. Not a name, not a favor, not a ride, nothing. He paused. That's not how people work. What do you want? The static hummed, and then Go 7 said something that Mitchell was not remotely prepared for. Is Kowalski still walking? Mitchell's head came up. What? The young one, abdominal. He's been saying, I'm good every 40 steps for the last hour. Is he still walking? Mitchell turned around slowly. 20 feet back, a 20-year-old private with a hole in him and one hand on the shoulder of the man in front lifted his head and said, because he'd heard his own name, I'm good, sir. Mitchell keyed up. He had to try twice to get his voice to work. He's still walking. Good, she said, and that was all. And Mitchell stood there with the handset in his hand and understood all at once, and far too late, that he had been asking the wrong question for 2 hours. He'd been asking who she was. He should have been asking what she'd lost. Go 7, he said quietly. Somebody left you out here. Static. Somebody left you out here and you've been sitting on this mountain for 6 years, and tonight you heard 23 men on a dead channel that nobody's supposed to be able to hear, and you answered. His throat was tight. You didn't have to answer. Captain, you could have let it go. It cost you everything to answer. He hears one whisper of this and your 6 years are gone. Mitchell's voice cracked and he let it. Why'd you answer? And Go 7 said so quietly that Brooks 6 feet away would swear afterward that he'd imagined it. Because nobody answered me. Nobody moved. Go 7. Grid 496, she said, and her voice was iron again. The door shut, bolted, painted over. There's a tree with the top sheared off. Go there, you've got 6 minutes. Go 7, listen. 6 minutes, Captain, and then a patrol crosses that line, and this whole conversation is academic. They went. At 41 minutes past the hour, they reached the tree with the top sheared off, and Mitchell was so busy trying to figure out how to get her talking again that he almost missed what was under it. It was Bergstrom who found it. He went down on one knee and stayed there too long, and when Mitchell came over, Bergstrom's face was wrong. Sir, he said. Sir, look. Under the sheared tree, buried under a foot of snow, and a cut sheet of green plastic weighted with rocks, there was a cache, ammunition, loose and stripped cardboard, sealed in a doubled contractor bag, 2 IV bags packed in insulation, batteries, a folded wool blanket dry, a 1-gallon jug of water sitting in a nest of chemical heat packs unfrozen, and on top of it all, a strip of 100-mile-an-hour tape with 2 words written on it in faded marker. Brooks read it out loud, and his voice did something strange in the middle of the second word. It says, for somebody. Nobody said anything. Mitchell crouched down and put his hand on the blanket, and it was dry and it was folded, and somebody had folded it, and he felt something go through him that he had absolutely no name for. Sir, Alvarez said. He had one of the IV bags in his hands, and he was looking at the expiration date, and his face was doing something complicated. Sir, this is 4 years old. Is it good? It's fine. It's saline. It doesn't, sir. That's not what I mean. Alvarez looked up. Sir, she put this here 4 years ago for nobody, for anybody. She's been putting these out here for 4 years for a person who might never come. His hands were shaking and it wasn't the cold. Sir, how many of these are out here? Mitchell keyed the handset. His voice came out rough. Go 7, we're at the tree. Take everything, she said. Leave the blanket for the one who's shaking worst, not the one who's hurt worst. They're different men. Doc will know. Alvarez's head snapped up. Go 7, Mitchell said. There's a tape on this cache. It says, for somebody. Static. How many of these are out here? Nothing. Go 7, how many caches? 19, she said. Mitchell shut his eyes. 19, he repeated. Some of them are gone. Animals get in. 2 got buried by slides. There's one under the north face I haven't been able to reach in 3 winters. A pause. Captain, take the ammunition and stop talking about it. You've been stalking a mountain, Mitchell said, for 4 years, for nobody. Take the ammunition. For nobody, Mitchell said, and his voice broke on it, and he didn't care. And 22 men heard it, and not one of them ever mentioned it again as long as they lived. You built 19 caches on a mountain for a person who was never coming because 6 years ago, you were the person who was never coming, and nobody built one for you. The static went on for a long, long time. And then Ghost 7 said in a voice that had come apart somewhere down at the bottom, somebody came. 2 words. Mitchell would carry them the rest of his life. Then she was gone again back behind the iron, and the voice that came next was the flat one, the one that gave grids. Load your magazines. Doc gets 4 minutes with the IVs and not a second more. And Captain, go. When you're loaded, I need you to do something, and you're not going to want to. Mitchell's stomach dropped. He knew that tone now. He'd learned it in 2 hours. Say it. Your extraction is compromised, she said. I've told you that, but there's a piece I haven't told you because you weren't ready and now you have to be. Ghost 7. They're not going to leave you out here. Mitchell frowned. What? Think Captain. He didn't just decline your medevac. That's messy. 23 Rangers frozen in a valley, that's an investigation. That's a congressman. That's an army that goes looking. Her voice was terribly, terribly calm. He needs a story. He needs a place where 23 men died in a way that makes sense. He needs a body count with a reason attached to it. Mitchell's mouth had gone dry as sand. He is going to send a helicopter, Ghost 7 said. It's already spinning up. It will arrive at LZ Bravo in approximately 50 minutes. It will be exactly what you prayed for 2 hours ago. And there will be 20 men in the rocks above that LZ waiting for you to walk onto it, she said. That's what compromise means, Captain. It doesn't mean they know about it. It means it's a set. He's not abandoning you anymore. He's finished with that plan. A pause. He's rescuing you now. On paper. In the log. Forever. And in about 50 minutes, 23 Rangers are going to die 200 meters from an American helicopter, and the report is going to say he tried. Mitchell stood absolutely still. That's the twist he needs, she said. You understand, he doesn't need you dead in a ditch. He needs you dead reaching for his hand. Somewhere behind Mitchell, very quietly, Private Kowalski said, I'm good. And Captain Ryan Mitchell opened his eyes and something in his face had changed, and every man who saw it stepped back a half step without meaning to. Ghost 7, he said. You said 50 minutes. Approximately. How far is LZ Bravo from where I'm standing? A pause. 31 minutes, she said. Why? Because we're going to be there in 25, Mitchell said. And for the first time in 2 hours, Ghost 7's voice broke completely open. Captain, no, Mayema. 19 caches, Mitchell said. 4 years, for nobody. Mitchell, listen to me. You've been alone out here for 6 years because a man decided you weren't worth a helicopter. Mitchell's voice was shaking and steady at the same time, which should not have been possible, and every man in that tree line heard it. He's about to make that same decision twice in one night, and I am going to be standing on that landing zone when he does with 23 witnesses, and I am going to make him do it on the record. The static roared, and then Ghost 7 said the last thing anybody expected. You'll never make it in 25. Watch me. You'll make it in 22, she said, if you go the way I came down. And Mitchell felt the ground shift under him. The way you came down, he repeated slowly. Ghost 7, 6 years ago, which way did you come down? The wind on her end changed. He heard it. Higher, thinner, moving. She was walking. For the first time in 2 hours, she was walking. Ghost 7, Mitchell said, where are you going? And she said, down. Down where? Mitchell said. She didn't answer. Ghost 7, down where you've been on high ground for 2 hours. You've been on high ground for 6 years. What do you mean down? Captain, you're burning seconds you told me you didn't have. Answer the question. You want to be on that landing zone in 22 minutes, or do you want to argue? I want both, Mitchell said, and I have the radio, so start talking. There was a sound on her end. Not a word. A short breath pushed out through the nose, and Mitchell recognized it because he had heard it once before 40 minutes ago when he'd told her Rule 1 was negotiable. "You're impossible," she said. "I've been told. Move your column northwest. There's a bench about 90 meters on. It's going to look like it drops off. It doesn't. Go 7. It's a shelf. It runs almost the whole face, and it comes out 400 meters above LZ Bravo on the western side. You'll be above them. That's the only reason I'm telling you." Her voice had gone hard and fast, the words coming quicker than they had all night. "Go." They went at 51 minutes past the hour, and by 54, Mitchell had stopped noticing his own legs. He'd been running the number since she'd said the word rescuing. He couldn't stop running them. 20 men in the rocks, a helicopter in 50 minutes, and a colonel somewhere warm sitting in a chair waiting to be a hero in a log entry. Harding came up beside him on the shelf, breathing hard, and his voice came out low and jagged. Sir, I want to say something, and I want to say it once." "Say it." "An hour ago I called her a liar." "You did." "I want it on the record that I was wrong." Harding said it like he was confessing something in a church. "And I want it on the record that I'm about to be wrong again, because I'm about to say the second thing, and the second thing is that I don't think we should walk onto that LZ. Mitchell kept walking. "Go on." "Sir, she just told you there's a set. She told you 20 men. She told you the whole thing is engineered to put us on that flat with a bird overhead. And your plan is to go stand on it." Harding's voice cracked. "That's not a plan, sir. That's a headline. That's them writing the report and us signing it with our bodies." "You're right." "Sir B," Harding stopped. "And what?" "You're right, Cole. That's exactly what it is." Mitchell didn't slow down. "Now tell me the alternative." Harding opened his mouth. "Tell me," Mitchell said. "You want to go east, 11 miles, no road, 2 liters of private with a hole in him and a storm that gets worse at first light. Kowalski dies at mile 2. Reyes died 40 minutes ago, and Doc hasn't told me yet because he's hoping he's wrong." Behind them, Alvarez's head came up sharply, and his face said everything. "Doc," Mitchell said, not turning around. "Is he wrong?" Alvarez didn't answer for 3 steps. Then, "No, sir, he's not wrong. Reyes has been gone about 50 minutes. "I didn't, sir. I didn't want to stop the column." Something went out of Mitchell's shoulders and did not come back. "Thank you, Doc," he said quietly. "You did right." He kept walking. He made himself keep walking. 22, he thought, not 23. 22. And a voice on a mountain had said, all 23 are clear an hour ago, and had been wrong, and Mitchell was going to have to tell her that, and he did not know why that felt like the heaviest thing in his ruck. "Sir," Harding said. "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't." "You wanted the alternative," Mitchell said. "That's the alternative. The alternative is I walk my men into a mountain and let it take them slow so that nobody can say I made a bad decision. That's not a plan either, Cole. That's just dying politely." Harding said nothing. "There's one road out of this," Mitchell said. "It's that helicopter. He built us a trap and hung a rescue on it, and the ugly truth is he's right because we need the bird. We need it. So we're going to take the trap." He looked over. "But we're going to take it from above, and we're going to be there first. And when that bird comes down, there are going to be 22 Americans standing on that flat with a story." At 58 minutes past the hour, Brooks slid up behind them with the radio. "Sir, Go 7 wants you." Mitchell took the handset. "Go." "Say it," she said. "Say what?" "You've gone quiet. Your column's tightened up. Somebody died." A pause. "Say it." Mitchell closed his eyes for a step and a half. "Sergeant Marcus Reyes," he said, 29, 2 kids. He's been gone since the drainage. Doc just told me." The static hummed. "Go 7 an hour ago, you said all 23 were clear." "I know what I said." "You weren't wrong. He was alive when you said it. He was Captain. He was alive, and I want you to know that because I know how this goes, I've done this, I know exactly what you're doing. Right now, you're going back through the last hour looking for the 60 seconds where you could have, Captain." "And there isn't one," Mitchell finished. "There isn't one. I looked. I've been looking for 50 minutes. The frequency was silent for a long time. Then she said in a voice that had nothing left in it at all, "Marcus Reyes." "Yes. I'll keep it. Mouse at 11. "I said I'll keep it," she said, and something in the way she said it made Mitchell understand with an awful sinking certainty that she meant it literally. that somewhere out there in the dark was a woman who kept names, that she'd been keeping names for 6 years, and there was a number, and she knew exactly what it was. How many, he said. Don't. How many names are you carrying? Bench ends in 40 meters, said Ghost 7. There's a step down. It's about chest high. Lower your wounded, don't jump them. And Captain, when you come off that step, you're going to be able to see the flat. And I need you to look at it and tell me what you see, and I need you to be honest with me, because I've been wrong once tonight already, and I can't be wrong twice. At 64 minutes past the hour, Captain Ryan Mitchell came off the step, put his optic up, and looked at the place where his men had been scheduled to die. He looked for 11 seconds. He didn't say anything for 11 seconds. Then he keyed up, and his voice had gone somewhere very far down. Ghost 7, I count 8 in the rocks on the north side, 2 more in the scree west. There's a gun. There's a gun on the high side north face. They've got it dug in, and they've got a lane straight across the flat. That's 10. That's 10. I told you 20. I know what you told me. Where are the other 10, Captain? I don't know. Look again. Ghost 7, I'm looking at the hole. Look at the trees, she said. South edge, where a man would walk out to meet a helicopter. Mitchell shifted his optic and his whole body went cold. Oh God, he said, how many? They're not in the rocks. Mitchell's voice had dropped to nothing. Ghost 7, they're not in the rocks. They're in the tree line on the friendly side. They're where we'd come from. They're not shooting at the flat, she said. They're shooting at the approach. They don't want you dying on the LZ, Captain. They want you dying 200 meters short of it in the trees on your own approach route in exactly the place a ranger element gets caught by an enemy that got there first. A pause. It has to look like a firefight, not a slaughter. You knew. I suspected. You knew and you sent us up here anyway. I sent you above it, Ghost 7 said, because a man who plans an ambush on an approach never plans for the people to arrive from the wrong direction. Right now, Captain, there are 20 men on that ground, and every single rifle is pointed at a place you're not. They are looking south. You are north and 400 meters up. Her voice went flat and terrible. You have about 9 minutes where you are the only person on that mountain who knows where everybody is. That's not luck. That's the whole thing. That's everything I have. Spend it well. At 69 minutes past the hour, Brooks said the second thing that changed the night. Sir. He had a headset on one ear and his eyes had gone strange. Sir, I got the bird. What? The helicopter. I got it. Sir, they're on a common frequency and they're not even encrypted. They're, sir, that are just talking. They're 26 minutes out. Sir, they're chatting about the weather. Mitchell's stomach turned to water. They don't know, he said. Sir, Brooks, listen to me. Listen, that crew doesn't know. Mitchell grabbed his shoulder hard enough to hurt. Whoever's flying that bird is not in on it. They're just a crew. They got a mission, they're coming to get us, and they are going to land in the middle of 20 guns, and they are going to think it's a bad night, and they are going to die thinking they got unlucky. Harding said hoarsely, Sir, that's 5 more people. That's 5 more people. Sir, can we warn them? Ghost 7, Mitchell said into the handset. Can we warn the aircraft? No. They're not part of this. I know they're not, and no. Her voice was absolute. You key that aircraft, the aircraft reports it, the report goes to the operations center, and the man in the operations center picks up a phone and calls the man on that ridge and tells him 22 Rangers are on the north side 400 meters up. You will kill everyone you're trying to save in 90 seconds. Mitchell's hand was shaking on the handset. Then what do I do? You get to the flat before the bird does, Ghost 7 said, and you take the gun off the north face and you do it with no radio and no noise, because the second there's noise, the whole thing collapses and you're 22 men in the open against 20 in the rocks. And how do I take a dug-in gun position with no noise? You don't, she said, and Mitchell understood. No, he said, Captain. No, absolutely not. Ghost 7, you fire on that gun and every man on that mountain turns around and looks at you. Yes. They will triangulate you in 2 shots. They will put a mortar on you. You told me yourself there's 28 of them and 1 of you, and there's no version where 1 rifle wins. There isn't, she agreed. That's why I'm not going to fight them. Then what are you? I'm going to be the loudest thing on this mountain, Ghost 7 said, and every rifle that's pointed at your approach is going to come off it and point at me. And while they're doing that, you're going to walk your men onto that flat." The wind roared and nobody said anything at all. "You'll die," Mitchell said. "Probably. Ghost 7. "Captain, do you know what I was doing 4 hours ago?" she said, and her voice cracked, actually cracked, for the first time all night. "I was sitting in a hole in the ground, eating a 4-year-old ration and listening to a man I hate talk about a golf trip. That's my life. That has been every day of my life for 6 years. And then a boy started making that sound on an open channel, and I heard it, and I thought, God, help me. I thought, not again. That's not 22, she said. 22 men, Captain. I've got 7 names in my pocket, and I've been carrying them for 6 years, and tonight I can put 22 on the other side of the ledger. Do you understand what that is to me? Do you have any idea what I would trade it for that?" "Not you," Mitchell said. "Not you, Go 7. You don't get to trade, you... Oh, it's already traded." "It is not." "Captain," her voice cut him off like a wire. "Rule 2. Mitchell stood there with his eyes shut and his jaw locked, and 21 men watching him, and Harding very quietly said, Sir, the bird's 22 minutes. At 73 minutes past the hour, Captain Ryan Mitchell broke Rule 2. "Ghost 7, he said, "come to the extraction zone." Silence. "That's not a request. There's a helicopter with 5 seats and 22 Rangers, and I will put you on that bird if I have to carry you. Come to the extraction zone." Silence. "Ghost 7, and then very quietly, "I can't." "Why?" A pause. "Because they are between me and you." And Ryan Mitchell felt the entire night reorganize itself in his head. "Say that again," he whispered. "You heard me. You're on the far side." He was already turning, already looking, already seeing it, the shot on the Scout that had come from behind 1,200 meters. The wind on her end, that was thinner than the wind on his. "Ghost 7, you're not above us. You've never been above us. You're on the other side of them. You've been on the other side of them all night. Every shot you've taken tonight, you took through them. Yes. That's why you couldn't come. That's why you never came." His voice was breaking apart. "You're not hiding from us. I'm between them and you," she said. "That's what I do. That's all I've ever done. Somebody has to be the thing in the middle, Captain. That's the whole job. There's nothing noble in it. There's 20 men between you and that bird." "Yes." "Ghost 7, listen to me." 19, she said. "There were 20. There's 19 now." Mitchell's head snatched up. "What?" 2 minutes ago, she said. "The one in the scree with the radio. He was about to report a light. Somebody in your column has a red lens leaking, Captain, and it's the 4th man from the back, and you might want to fix that." Bergstrom, 4th from the back, made a sound like he'd been punched and slapped a hand over his chest rig. "You just took a shot," Mitchell said. "You took a shot and I didn't hear it. You wouldn't. Not from where you are. Not with this wind. Ghost 7, you told me they'd triangulate." "They will." "Then why?" "Because he was going to report a light," she said, like she was explaining something to a child, "and your men were standing under it." At 78 minutes past the hour, Brooks said, "Sir," in a voice that made every man in the column turn. "What?" "Sir, they're moving." Brooks had the headset pressed against his ear with both hands. "Sir, the ridge element. They're moving. Sir, they're not looking south anymore." Mitchell's blood went to ice. "Say again." "Sir, I've got their net. It's the same frequency," she said. "I've been in on it since the drainage." Brooks's face had gone white. "Sir, they're calling out a sector. Northeast. Sir, they're not looking for us." He looked up. "Sir, they're looking for her. They know she took that shot." "Ghost 7, oh," Mitchell said into the handset. "Ghost 7, they're on to you. Move, right now, move." Nothing. "Ghost 7, answer me." Static. "Ghost 7. And then her voice, and it was wrong. It was wrong. It was thinner, and there was something under it, a hitch, a catch, the sound of a person talking around something. "I'm here," she said. "You're hit." "I'm here, Captain." "Don't." Mitchell's voice came out ragged. "Don't do that. Not to me. Not after tonight. You're hit." 3 seconds. "Yes," she said. Brooks put a hand over his mouth. Harding turned away and looked at nothing. "How bad?" Mitchell said. "It doesn't change anything." "How bad?" "Left side. It went through. It's not the worst one I've had." A short, terrible breath. Captain, listen, the gun on the north face, when I go loud, that gun is going to swing east and up. It's going to take them about 4 seconds. That's your 4 seconds, not 5, 4. Your people have to be moving before I fire, not after. Ghost 7. Say you understand. You are bleeding out on a mountain and you are giving me a fire plan. Say you understand. And it was the first time all night that Ghost 7 had raised her voice, and it broke and it kept breaking. Say it, Captain. Please, I don't have very much left, and I need you to say it. The whole column heard the pleas. Mitchell stood in the snow with his eyes streaming and his hand around the handset like it was a throat. I understand, he said. Thank you. Ghost 7. I need your name. No, I need your name. Captain Bushan. I have 22 minutes, Mitchell said, and now his voice was rising and he didn't care who heard it on what frequency. And every one of them is going to walk off this mountain, and every one of them is going to spend the rest of his life knowing that somebody stood between him and 20 guns, and he never knew who. Do you understand what that does to a man? Do you know what you're leaving in us? He was shouting now. You've got 7 names in your pocket. You want to put 22 on the other side of the ledger. Fine, then let us carry one. Let us carry yours. That's the trade. That's the whole trade. You give me your name. Static. Long static. Brooks was crying openly and didn't know it. Harding had his fist against his own mouth. Kowalski, 4 minutes from a helicopter with a hole in his belly and both hands on a dead man's litter, said, come on, say it. And Ghost 7 said, Carter. Mitchell's knees almost went. Say the rest, he said. Sergeant First Class Lena Carter, she said. 3rd Battalion, Reconnaissance. Killed in action. March of the year you were a captain for the first time on an operation called Silent Wolf, which does not exist on a mountain that isn't on your map, along with 7 other people whose names have also been very carefully removed from everything. A pause. There's a stone with my name on it. My mother visits it. Twice a year I've watched her do it. Nobody in that column could speak. Silent Wolf, Mitchell said. I've heard that. No, you haven't. I have. I've heard. You've heard the ghost story, Lena Carter said. That's not the same thing. The ghost story is that a team went bad on a mountain and the army buried it. Here's what actually happened, Captain, and you're going to be the only living person who's heard it from me. So listen once. Her breathing was audible now. It hadn't been an hour ago. We were 8. We were sent to verify a compound. We got there in 11 hours instead of 30 because my team leader was very good. And we got there early, and because we got there early, we saw something we weren't supposed to see, which was that the compound was empty. It had been empty for a month. There was nothing in it. It had never had anything in it. Then why? Because for 2 years, somebody had been writing reports that said it was full, she said. Full of things that required men and aircraft and money and a war. And we sat there in the dirt at 4 a.m, looking at an empty building, and my team leader said the stupidest, bravest sentence I have ever heard in my life, which was, send it up. Send it up exactly as we see it. And he did. And he did. And 40 minutes later, command told us to hold in place and wait for exfil. Her voice had gone completely flat, which was worse than anything. And we held, because we were soldiers, and we waited, because that's what you do. Lena, the first round was short, she said. That's the part nobody understands. It was short, which means somebody was adjusting, which means it wasn't a mistake, Captain, because you don't adjust a mistake, you don't walk a mistake onto a grid, you only walk fire onto a grid when you mean it. 6 more rounds, 7 men. I was 40 meters out on the flank taking a leak behind a rock like an idiot, and that is the only reason I am talking to you tonight. And I have thought about that rock every single day for 6 years. Brooks whispered, oh, sweet Jesus. And the voice that adjusted that fire, Lena Carter said, was the same voice that told us to hold in place. And I have that voice, Captain. I've had it for 6 years. I've had it on tape on a device in a place along with 2 years of him writing reports about an empty building along with 41 minutes ago when he heard your beacon and set it aside. Her breath hitched. That's what's in the caches, by the way. Some of them. Not all. You didn't open the right one. Mitchell couldn't speak. He put me in the ground, she said, and the paperwork made it official, and my mother has a stone. And I've spent 6 years on this mountain Because the day I walk down off it and say a word to anybody with a rank, I'm a traitor and a deserter and a liar with a 6-year hole in my story, and he is a colonel with a clean file. That's the math. I did the math. I've done the math 10,000 times. You did it wrong, Mitchell said. Captain. You did it wrong, Lena. His voice cracked wide open. Because you never had 22 witnesses before. Silence. And then so quietly he almost lost it in the wind, Lena Carter said, No, I never did. Then don't fire. What? Don't fire. Don't go loud. Walk. Walk away right now, east wherever, and let me take that gun and lose men doing it, and you get off this mountain alive. And you come down with us, and you say his name in a room with a flag in it, and there will be 22 of us standing behind you, and he will never be able to say the word traitor. Not once, not ever, because he will have to say it about the woman who saved a ranger company in front of God and everybody. Mitchell was shaking. Lena, please, don't fire. Come down. 10 seconds. 15. And then Sergeant First Class Lena Carter said something that Ryan Mitchell would hear in his sleep for the rest of his life. Captain, she said gently, I have 11 rounds left. I've got a hole in my side and I am 900 meters up a face I can't climb down twice. I was never coming off this mountain tonight. I was only ever deciding what it bought. Lena, get your men to the flat. Lena, 4 seconds, she said, not 5, move them now. And the frequency went dead. At 88 minutes past the hour, 22 Rangers came off the north side of Kestrel Valley at a dead run, and a single rifle shot rolled across the mountains, and every enemy gun on that ground swung east and up toward a woman who had decided exactly what her life was worth. They were still running when the gun on the north face stopped pointing at them. Bergstrom felt it before he understood it. He'd been counting his own steps out loud the way he did when he was terrified, and at step 19, the whole weight of that mountain came off his back and swung east. And he heard himself say, It's off us, sir. It's off us. It's off us. Move! Mitchell was screaming it, and he was not a man who screamed. 4 seconds. 4 seconds. Move! 22 men came down the north face of Kestrel Valley in a way that no manual has ever described, half running and half falling ladders, dragging Doc Alvarez with his fist wrapped in Reyes's litter strap and his boots barely touching the ground. Kowalski somehow upright with a hole in his belly and his teeth locked and his hand welded to the back of the man ahead of him. The gun opened up at 88 minutes and 40 seconds past the hour, and it opened up on nothing at all. On a mountainside 900 meters east and up. On a woman. She's drawing it. Harding gasped. Sir, she's drawing all of it. Don't look. Don't you look. Run. At 90 minutes past the hour, 22 Rangers hit the flat at Kestrel LZ Bravo from the wrong direction. And 20 men who had been staring south into a tree line for 4 hours in a blizzard turned around and discovered that the entire night had been happening behind them. What followed was not a battle. Mitchell would say that later in a room with a flag in it, and nobody would believe him. It wasn't a battle. It lasted 110 seconds, and it was a demolition because Lena Carter had spent 2 hours doing arithmetic, and the arithmetic was this 20 men lying on their bellies, pointed one way, 22 men arriving from the other, and 4 seconds of confusion that she had bought at a price nobody in that column could bear to think about while they were spending it. Bergstrom took the gun position. He went straight at it. He didn't remember deciding to. He remembered getting there and finding that it was over and that his hands wouldn't work right afterward. Brooks put the 240 on the scree, and the scree stopped existing as a place where men could stay. And Ryan Mitchell, moving through it with a rifle he barely remembered firing, understood with perfect, in terrible clarity, that every single thing happening on that flat was happening because a voice was still shooting, because she hadn't stopped. Every 20 or 30 seconds from 900 meters up, another shot came down out of that mountain, and every time it came, the whole enemy line flinched east again, and every flinch was a second, and every second was a man of Mitchell's still alive. She fired 11 times. Brooks counted. Brooks, who had a machine gun in his hands and a battle in front of him, counted every single one of them, and later he could not explain why, except to say that it felt like the only decent thing left to do. 11 rounds, she had told them. 11 rounds and a hole in her side and in no way down. At 91 minutes and 50 seconds past the hour, the 11th shot rolled across the valley. And then nothing. Sir, Brooks's voice, Wrong, high. Sir, that's 11. Sir, that was 11. Keep working. Sir, that's all of them. At 93 minutes past the hour, it was over, and 22 men stood on a landing zone that had been built to be their grave, breathing like animals, and not one of them said a word because they were all listening to a mountain that had gone completely silent. Harding found Mitchell first. The lieutenant's face was gray and streaked, and his hands were shaking so badly he had to grip his own rifle to stop them. Sir, the bird's 4 minutes. Get the wounded on the north edge. Sir. Get them staged, Cole. Sir, listen to me. Harding grabbed his sleeve, and it was the first time in 8 months he had ever put a hand on his commander, and Mitchell turned and saw something in his face that he had never seen there before. Sir, she stopped shooting. She stopped shooting 3 minutes ago, and she's not on the radio, and the bird's 4 minutes. And if we get on that helicopter, his voice went to pieces. Sir, if we get on that helicopter, we are leaving her on that mountain. We are doing to her the exact thing that was done to her. We are the second one, sir. We're going to be the second one. Nobody around them moved. Every man within earshot had stopped. Mitchell stood absolutely still. Brooks, he said, get her. Sir, I've been trying for 3. Get her. Brooks keyed up. His voice cracked wide open on the first word. Go 7, this is Ranger Actual, how copy? Go 7, this is Ranger Actual. We are on the flat. We are clear. We are all clear. How copy? Sorry, Ghost 7. He swallowed. Lena, please answer. Static. Ghost 7, this is Danny Brooks. I'm the guy who got your number off a napkin from a drunk warrant officer 4 years ago, and I have never told a living soul, and I am asking you please key your handset. Static. 22 men stood on a landing zone in a blizzard and listened to nothing. At 96 minutes past the hour, Kowalski, sitting in the snow, with both hands in his own abdomen and roughly 40 minutes of blood left in him, said, Sir, she's got a hole in her side. Mitchell turned. Sir, I've got a hole in me too, and I'm talking. Kowalski's eyes were enormous and glassy and absolutely steady. It doesn't mean anything, sir. Being quiet doesn't mean anything. I've been quiet for 2 hours because I didn't want to slow anybody down. His face did something awful. Sir, maybe she's just being quiet so we get on the bird. Alvarez put a hand on the kid's shoulder and had to look away. And that right there was the thing that broke Ryan Mitchell. Brooks, he said, 900 meters east up the face. How high, sir? You heard me? She said 900 meters up a face she couldn't climb down twice. From where we stood east and up, that's the shoulder above the drainage. Give me a grid. Sir, the bird is 3 minutes. Give me a grid, Sergeant. Brooks gave him a grid. Cole, Mitchell said, you're taking the bird. Harding went white. Sir, you are taking the bird, and you are taking every wounded man on this ground, and you are taking Reyes home to his wife, and you are going to be on the deck at Bragg in 4 hours, and you are going to be the one who says all of this out loud into a recorder before anybody has time to build a story. Mitchell's voice was absolutely level now, the strange dead calm of a man who has stopped negotiating. You're the executive officer. You know the route packet. You know the 9 names. You know what she told us about the empty compound and the short round. Say all of it. Say it fast. Say it to somebody with a rank and a recorder, and say it before 8 o'clock. Sir, you can't stay out here. Bergstrom, Brooks, volunteers. 9 men stepped all forward. Mitchell looked at them, and something moved in his face, and he had to wait a second before he could speak. 4, he said, Bergstrom, Brooks, Kelly, Ruiz. The rest of you get on that aircraft. Sir, that is an order, and it is the last one I'm giving on this mountain. At 99 minutes past the hour, the helicopter came in, and it was exactly the thing they had prayed for 2 hours and 40 minutes ago, and Mitchell stood in the rotor wash and watched his men load and felt absolutely nothing about it at all. The crew chief was 23 years old and had no idea. That was the part that stayed with Mitchell. The kid was cheerful. He was cheerful hauling wounded Rangers onto his bird in a blizzard at 4 in the morning. And he had been sent there to Dom, and he did not know it, and he never would. Harding was the last one on. He stopped in the door. Sir, he had to shout over the rotors. Sir, what do I tell them? The truth. They won't believe it. Then make them ask a question, Mitchell shouted back. Cole, listen to me. They're going to try to close this in 6 hours. That's the whole game. They close it fast and it's a tragedy. And if it's a tragedy, nobody looks. You've got to make it a question. Just one. Just get one person in one room to ask one question out loud, and then it can't be closed, and then we've got time. Sir, go. Sir, if she's alive. Then I'm going to be standing there when she wakes up, Mitchell said, and she's going to be very unhappy about it. The bird went out at 101 minutes past the hour, and 5 men stood on an empty landing zone in the dark and watched it go, and then Ryan Mitchell turned around and looked east at a mountain and started walking. It took them 2 hours and 11 minutes to reach the shoulder. They found the hide at 4 minutes past 6 in the morning. It was not what any of them expected, and that was the first thing that got into Bergstrom, who had been in the regiment 9 years and had seen a great deal. It wasn't a fighting position, it was a home. It had been dug into the reverse slope and roofed and drained and reinforced and dug out again over what had obviously been years, and there was a shelf cut into the rock wall with a folded blanket on it, and a small stove made out of a ration can and a length of paracord strung across the ceiling, with 2 pairs of socks hanging on it to dry, and Kelly, who was 24 years old, took one look at the socks and turned around and walked back out into the snow and stood there for a full minute with his back to everybody. Because socks on a line is not a soldier's thing. Socks on a line is a person's thing. Somebody had lived here for 6 years, alone, and had hung her socks up to dry. Sir, Brooks said, his voice wasn't working. Sir, look. On the rock wall above the shelf there were names, 7 of them, scratched into stone, deep gone over and over, the way you'd carve a thing when you had nothing but time and nothing but grief. 7 names and 7 dates, all the same date. And underneath them, freshly scratched, so fresh the rock dust was still in the grooves, an 8th. Marcus Reyes. Bergstrom made a sound and sat down on the floor of the hide and put his hands over his face. She did it tonight, Brooks whispered. Sir, she did it tonight between the drainage and the flat. She stopped and I know. Sir, she was bleeding and she stopped to carve his name. I know, Danny. Mitchell's hands were shaking. He made them stop. Where is she, he said. She wasn't there. The blood was. There was a great deal of it frozen into the snow at the firing position and on the forward lip, and there was a rifle lying in it, and Ruiz picked the rifle up and worked the bolt, and the chamber was empty, and the magazine was empty, and there was not one round left anywhere in that position. 11. She had said 11, and she had fired 11, and she had not held one back, not even for herself. Sir, Ruiz said quietly. Sir, there's tracks. Where? Down, sir. Down the face. He looked up, and his voice did something. Sir, she went down. She said she couldn't climb down twice, sir, and she went down anyway. They followed the tracks for 400 meters, and the tracks got worse, and then the tracks got very bad. And at 8 minutes past 7 in the morning, they lost them at a place where the whole face had gone a slab avalanche, 300 meters wide, that had come off sometime in the night and taken everything on it into a basin 400 feet below. Nobody said anything for a long time. Sir, Bergstrom said finally, we dig. Sir, it's 400 feet up. We dig. They dug for 6 hours, 5 men, with their hands and their entrenching tools and a folding shovel from a 4-year-old cache marked for somebody. And at 2 in the afternoon, as the Black Hawk found them and put down in the basin, and a Colonel Mitchell had never met got out and told him to stop. Mitchell did not stop. The colonel told him again. And Ryan Mitchell, on his knees in a hole with his hands bleeding through his gloves, looked up and said, Sir, respectfully, there is a soldier under this snow, and I am not leaving her. And if you want me off this mountain, you are going to have to put me in restraints in front of these 4 men, and then you're going to have to explain to somebody why. They found the recorder at 4 minutes past 4, not the body, the recorder. It was in a cut in the rock at the edge of the slide, wrapped in a double contractor bag and taped and taped and taped again, and it was sitting on top of a strip of 100-mile-an-hour tape with 2 words on it in faded marker. For somebody. Brooks got to it first, and he sat down in the snow with it in his lap and did not open it. And when Mitchell came over, Brooks looked up at him with his face absolutely destroyed and said, Sir, she was carrying this down, sir. She wasn't running. She was delivering. Mitchell took it. It was a cheap thing, a commercial digital recorder, the kind you'd buy in a drugstore, and a stack of memory cards, and a paper notebook. And the notebook was full cover to cover, 6 years of it, and it was the neatest handwriting Mitchell had ever seen in his life. Dates, ms, frequencies, call signs, verbatim. 6 years of a man's voice. Sir, Bergstrom said, "Sir, what do we do with it?" And Mitchell said, "We don't give it to anybody with a rank." It took 11 days to find the right person, and the right person turned out to be a 31-year-old Army intelligence officer named Captain Emily Parker, who Mitchell had never met and who agreed to see him for 15 minutes in a parking lot because Lieutenant Cole Harding had spent those 11 days doing exactly what he had been told to do, which was to make somebody ask one question out loud. Harding had made 4 people ask it. Parker listened for 9 minutes without saying a word. Then she said, "Captain, do you know what you're carrying?" "Yes, ma'am." "No, you don't." She was very calm and she was very white. "You think you're carrying evidence of a murder. You're not. You're carrying 6 years of an American colonel making decisions he could only make because he believed the only witness was dead. Do you understand the difference?" She looked at him. Evidence of a murder can be explained. 6 years of a man talking when he thinks nobody's listening cannot. "Ma'am, will you take it?" Parker was quiet for a long moment. "Who's Vance to you?" she said. Mitchell's head came up. "Ma'am, you haven't said the name once in 9 minutes, Parker said. "Not once, that's very disciplined, and it's also how I know." She looked out the windshield. "Colonel Aaron Vance signed the closure on Silent Wolf. He signed the closure on your mission 6 days ago. He has signed the closure on 11 things in 6 years, and I have flagged 4 of them, and I have been told 4 times to stop." Her jaw moved. "Captain, I've had a folder in my desk for 2 years, and it has exactly nothing in it. Because every time I get close, the source dies, or the file goes, or somebody calls my colonel. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one question, and I want you to think before you answer." She turned and looked at him. "The woman on that mountain, is she alive?" "I don't know. Because if she's dead, Captain, this is a very good story and a very bad case." Parker's voice was flat. "A dead sniper with a 6-year hole in her file and a bag of tapes is not a witness. She's a ghost story. And they will bury her twice, and they will do it with a straight face, and the word they'll use is treason, and it will work because it always works, because nobody ever asks what a traitor heard." Mitchell sat very still. "She said that," he said. Parker blinked. "What?" "She said that, almost exactly that, on the radio at about 3 in the morning. Mitchell's voice had gone strange. "She said that's the whole point of the word. Nobody asked what a traitor heard." Parker looked at him for a long, long moment. Then she reached over and took the bag. "Then let's make somebody ask," she said. "What was on those cards took a forensic team 5 weeks to authenticate and 11 minutes to understand. The first 11 minutes were enough. The first 11 minutes were a man's voice 6 years old on a frequency that did not exist saying, 'Confirm grid, confirm, drop it in on them.' And a pause, and another voice asking a question, and the first voice saying calmly with no more heat than a man ordering a sandwich, 'I said drop it. They sent it up as observed. Do you understand what as observed means?' And then a pause of about 40 seconds, and then adjust, add 50. Add 50, because the first round was short. Because you do not adjust a mistake." Captain Emily Parker played 11 minutes of that recording in a room with a flag in it on the 16th of the month, and when it was finished, nobody in that room said anything for a full minute. And then a 2-star general who had known Aaron Vance for 19 years put his hand over his mouth and left. There were 41 hours of Vance on those cards, 41 hours of a man alone with a microphone he didn't know about being exactly who he was. 2 years of reports about a building that was empty, names of officers who had signed things, a conversation about money that had no business existing, a phone call in which Vance explained patiently to somebody whose voice was never identified that a reconnaissance team had gotten somewhere 11 hours early and that this was, quote, an administrative problem with a technical solution. And at 4 hours and 11 minutes into card 19 dated the night everything happened, 41 minutes after Ranger Actual's beacon went active, there was Colonel Aaron Vance's voice saying, "No assets available. Recommend closing the file." And then 7 seconds later, to someone in the room with him, not on the radio, not into anything he thought was recording in a tone of mild amusement, let them scream. The batteries die before they do. Emily Parker did not play that clip in the room with the flag. She played it in the hallway. Once. To one sergeant major who had come up out of the 75th and who had been standing outside the door for 4 hours because he had heard a rumor. The sergeant major listened to 9 words. Then he went and made 3 phone calls, and by the following Tuesday, there were 11 people asking questions instead of 1, and after that, it was not possible to close anything ever again. The Army searched the mountain for 19 days. They brought in bombs. They brought in ground-penetrating radar. They flew that basin so many times the locals started complaining. They dug out 400 feet of slab in a place where no reasonable person would dig, because a captain named Mitchell would not stop asking, and because by the 3rd week, nobody in that chain of command had the nerve to tell him no. They found the hide. They photographed the 7 names and the 8th. They found 9 of the 19 caches, and each one had a strip of tape on it, and every strip said the same 2 words. And by the 4th cache, the young soldiers doing the searching had stopped talking to each other entirely. They found no body, no equipment, no blood beyond the firing position. No trace of any kind past the 400-meter mark where the face had gone. Nothing. On the 19th day, they called it, and a public affairs officer stood at a podium and used the phrase presumed lost. And Ryan Mitchell watched it on a television in a waiting room and felt his hands go numb. Because presumed lost was what they'd said the first time. Because presumed lost was how you put somebody in the ground with paperwork. Because a stone with her name on it already existed, and her mother visited it twice a year, and Lena Carter had watched her do it, and now the United States Army was going to do the exact same thing to her all over again, on the same mountain for the 2nd time in 6 years, and this time they were going to do it while calling her a hero, which was somehow infinitely worse. Mitchell got up and walked out of the waiting room. Brooks found him into the parking lot 40 minutes later, is sitting on a curb in the rain like a man who'd been dropped there. Sir, they did it again, Mitchell said. Danny, they did it again. Sir, 19 days. 6 years she was out there. 6 years and they gave her 19 days. His voice was gone. And I stood on a landing zone and told her, come down, we'll carry your name. And she did, Danny. She came down. She was coming down the face with that bag in her hands. She believed me. Brooks sat down on the curb next to his captain in the rain and did not say anything because there wasn't anything. And because he had learned on a mountain in Alaska that sometimes the only decent thing left is to be the person who stays. They sat there for a long time. Then Brooks said quietly, Sir, there were 19 caches. Mitchell didn't look up. I know. They found 9. I know. Sir. Brooks's voice changed. Sir, she told you, on the radio. She said some of them are gone. Animals get in too, got buried by slides. He was talking faster now. And then she said there's one under the north face I haven't been able to reach in 3 winters. Mitchell's head came up very slowly. She said she couldn't reach it, Brooks said. Sir, why would she keep track of a cost she couldn't reach for 3 winters? Why would she still be counting it? Mitchell stared at him. Sir, Brooks said, she wasn't stalking that mountain for somebody. And Ryan Mitchell got to his feet in a parking lot in the rain, with his heart going like a hammer, because he suddenly understood 6 weeks too late exactly what 19 caches on a mountain actually were. They weren't charity. They were a route. Say it again, Mitchell said. A route, sir. Brooks was on his feet now, too soaked to the skin, talking with his hands. 19 caches. She said some are gone, 2 got buried when she can't reach. Sir, that's not how you talk about charity. You don't inventory charity. You don't keep counting a box you gave away. Danny. Sir, a man who's given up doesn't keep a list. Brooks's voice cracked. Sir, she kept a list. Mitchell stood in the rain with water running off his jaw and felt something come alive in his chest that he had spent 6 weeks strangling. 9 of 19, he said. 9 of 19, sir, and they searched a basin. They searched down. They searched where a body goes. Brooks was almost shouting. Sir, nobody searched the ones she couldn't reach. Mitchell was already walking. Sir, Une, where are you? Get Bergstrom. Get Ruiz. Get Kelly. Sir, it's been 6 weeks. Get Parker, Mitchell said. Emily Parker met them at a diner off post at 11 o'clock that night, because she did not want to have the conversation anywhere with a ceiling that belonged to the Army. She listened for 4 minutes with a cup of coffee going cold in front of her and her hands flat on the table. Then she said, "Say the number again." 19, Mitchell said, and they found 9. 9. Parker looked at Brooks. "Sergeant, how do you know she said 19? How do you know it wasn't 9? It was 3 in the morning. You were being shot at. It was a bad radio." "Because I wrote it down, ma'am." Parker went still. "You what?" Brooks reached into his jacket and put a green notebook on the table, the soaked, warped, ruined kind that every commo sergeant on Earth carries and never throws away, and he opened it to a page and turned it around. Every word, every grid, every time. 6 hours of it in the shorthand of a man who had been trained since he was 19 to write down what came out of a radio. Parker put one finger on the page and did not move it for a long time. "Sergeant Brooks," she said quietly, "do you understand that this is the only contemporaneous record of a conversation the United States Army has spent 6 weeks saying didn't happen?" Brooks blinked. "Ma'am, it's just my log." "It's not just your log." "Ma'am, I write everything down. That's the job. Any commo guy would have." "No," Parker said. "No, they wouldn't, because everybody else was busy running. You had a machine gun in your hands and you were writing." She looked up at him and her eyes were bright. "Sergeant, why did you write?" Brooks looked at the table. His jaw worked twice before anything came out. "Because she was the only one talking to us, ma'am," he said. "Everybody else quit. She didn't quit. So I wrote it down." He shrugged like it was nothing and his voice went to pieces on the last word. Somebody had to write her down. Nobody at that table said anything for a while. Then Parker closed the notebook and put her hand on top of it. "There's a problem," she said. "Ma'am, Captain, listen to me because I'm about to be the person you hate for 10 minutes. She leaned forward. "The board convenes in 11 days. Vance's counsel has already filed. Do you know what their entire defense is? It's not that the tape is fake. They know the tape's real. It's that the tape came from nowhere." Her voice hardened. "No chain of custody, no provenance. Recovered by a captain alone in a hole on a mountain 6 weeks after a mission that ended badly for him, with no living person able to say where those cards came from or who made them. Their whole case is one sentence, and the sentence is, 'This is a grieving officer and a bag of tapes that appeared out of a snowbank.'" "That's obscene," Mitchell said. "It's effective." Parker's hand tightened on the notebook. "Captain, do you know what they're going to call her? They're not going to call her a traitor. That was the old plan. They're smarter now." She looked at him. "They're going to call her a rumor. They're going to stand up in that room and say respectfully, 'There is no Ghost 7. There is no Lena Carter. That woman has a headstone and a mother and a date of death. And what we have here is a folktale and a captain who needs one to be true.'" Mitchell felt the blood go out of his face. "They can't. They already have. It's in the filing." Parker's voice was flat as a table. "And the worst part, Captain, is that they're going to win with it because I've got 41 hours of a man being a monster and not one human being who can walk into that room and say, 'I made this recording and here is why.'" Bergstrom said hoarsely, "Ma'am, there's 22 of us. You're 22 men who heard a voice on a radio." "Ma'am, we heard her." "You heard a voice," Parker said, "and it was not cruel. It was worse than cruel, it was patient. Sergeant, do you know how many combat veterans have sworn on their lives that they heard a voice on a radio that wasn't there? Do you know how old that story is? It's older than radios." She sat back. "They'll put a psychologist on the stand. He'll be very kind about it. He will explain to that board gently with enormous respect for your service that 22 isolated men under extreme stress in a whiteout produced a shared narrative. And every officer in that room will nod because it's plausible, and because plausible is all they need." Nobody spoke. Then Ruiz said quietly, "Ma'am, we found her house." Parker's head turned. "We found her house," Ruiz said. "There's a stove in it. There's socks on a line." His voice went, "Ma'am, there's socks on a line. They'll say a trapper built it. There's 7 names on the wall. They'll say you carved them." Kelly stood up so fast his chair went over. "Sit down, Sergeant," Parker said without heat. "Sit down because I'm on your side and because I need you to understand exactly how hard this is before you understand what I'm about to say next." Kelly sat down. Parker looked at Brooks's notebook for a long moment. Then she looked at Mitchell. 9 of 19, she said. 9 of 19. Captain, she said it very carefully. If there is a 10th cache under the north face, and if it has a strip of tape on it, and if that strip of tape has her handwriting on it, and if that handwriting matches a service record that the United States Army spent 6 years pretending it destroyed, then she's not a rumor, Mitchell said. Then she's a person, Parker said, and a person can be murdered, and a murder can be tried. She stood up and picked up her coat. How fast can you get on that mountain? They were on the mountain in 31 hours. It took 9 days. 9 days of 5 men and 1 intelligence captain who had never done anything like it in her life, and who did it anyway, digging into a north face in the weather that killed men every year, working off a soaked notebook in a dead woman's arithmetic. They found the 10th cache on the 6th day, and it was empty, and animals had been in it, and there was no tape left on it at all. And Bergstrom sat down in the snow and put his head in his hands, and Mitchell had to physically pick him up. They found the 11th on the 8th day, and it was intact, and it had a strip of tape, and the tape said, "For somebody." And Emily Parker held it in 2 gloved fingers and looked at it and started very quietly to cry, which none of them had ever expected and none of them ever mentioned. And on the 9th day at 4 minutes past 2 in the afternoon, 420 meters west of the 11th cache, in a cut in the rock under an overhang that nobody would ever find unless they were looking for a cache and not for a body, Kelly stopped walking. "Sir," he said. He said it so calmly that nobody moved. "Sir," Kelly said again, and then his voice went completely to pieces. "Sir, sir, sir." Mitchell got there in 11 seconds, and he remembered every one of them for the rest of his life. She was in the cut, wrapped in a green plastic sheet, curled up the way a person curls when they are trying to keep the last of the heat in, with her back against the rock, and both hands tucked inside her jacket. There was frozen blood on her left side from her ribs to her knee. There was a wound in her thigh that had been packed with a field dressing and then packed again with something that had once been a sock. She had made it 420 meters west across the face with a hole through her side and a shattered leg in the dark in a blizzard toward the cache, and she had gotten within 400 meters of it, and she had not made it, and she had stopped, and she had wrapped herself up, and she had lain down. She had been there 6 weeks and 2 days. Kelly was on his knees making a sound like an animal, and Ryan Mitchell reached out with 2 fingers and put them on Lena Carter's throat because he was a professional, and it was the thing you did, and he did it knowing exactly what he was going to find, and he found it. Nothing. He knelt there in the snow for a very long time. "Sir," Brooks whispered. "Sir, is she?" "Yeah," Mitchell said. That was all he could get out. That one word. Nobody spoke. The wind moved. Emily Parker stood 4 feet away with her hand over her mouth and 11 days of professional distance coming off her like paint. Then Bergstrom said, "Sir, look at her hands." Mitchell looked. Both of Lena Carter's hands were inside her jacket, and they were closed around something, and it took the 4 of them almost 20 minutes to get it free because 6 weeks of Alaskan winter had made a decision about her grip and did not want to reverse it. It was a photograph in a plastic bag folded once. 8 people, young, filthy, grinning like idiots in front of a truck somewhere, hot arms around each other the way people look exactly once in their lives and never again. And on the back, in the neatest handwriting any of them had ever seen in pencil, 6 years old 3rd Recon. All of us. Nobody left. Kelly walked away into the snow and stood with his back to everybody and did not come back for a long time. Parker took the photograph in both hands and looked at it for 11 seconds. Then she said in a voice that had gone absolutely steel, "Captain, get her off this mountain, right now, today. Do not let anybody put her anywhere I can't reach her. Do you understand me? Not a morgue, not a hospital, not a mortuary affairs unit, not until I have 4 people in the room with credentials. I picked myself." "Ma'am." "Captain, they buried her twice," Parker said. "They are not getting a 3rd. She came off the mountain at 7 minutes past 5 in the afternoon on the 9th day, and 5 Rangers carried her, and not one of them let anybody else touch the litter. And the crew chief on the bird was the same 23-year-old kid from the landing zone purely by accident. And when they told him who it was, he sat down on the deck of his own aircraft and wept like a child. The autopsy took 4 days. The findings took 11 minutes to read, and Ryan Mitchell read them 19 times. Gunshot wound left flank through and through, non-immediately fatal. Gunshot wound right femur comminuted fracture. 15 previous injuries, all healed, all untreated, all consistent with a person who had been living alone in a wilderness for approximately 6 years. Malnutrition, frostbite damage to 7 fingers, old scarring across the back and shoulders consistent with proximity to a high explosive detonation approximately 6 years prior, and cause of death, hypothermia. Not the gunshot, not the fall. She had stopped shooting at 91 minutes and 50 seconds past the hour with 11 rounds gone, and she had come down 400 meters of face. She told a captain she couldn't climb, and then she had crossed 420 meters west with a broken leg toward a box of food and batteries she'd put there 4 years earlier for somebody, and it had gotten dark and it had gotten cold, and she had run out of body before she ran out of will. The medical examiner, a civilian 61 years old who had seen 11,000 bodies, put his glasses on the table and said, "Captain, I want to tell you something, and it's not in the report because I can't put it in the report." "Sir." "She lay down on purpose," he said. "She wrapped herself. She tucked her hands. She was conscious for a considerable time, and she knew exactly what was happening to her." He rubbed his eyes. "Son, I've been doing this since 1989. People don't do that. People fight it. People claw." She folded the sheet. Mitchell couldn't speak. "She wasn't giving up," the old man said quietly. "She was making sure whoever found her wouldn't have to look at anything ugly." The board convened on a Tuesday. Emily Parker walked into a room with a flag in it carrying a photograph, a soaked green notebook, 41 hours of tape, an autopsy report, and a strip of 100-mile-an-hour tape with 2 words on it. Vance's counsel stood up in the first 9 minutes and said the sentence everybody knew was coming, that there was no chain of custody, that the recordings had appeared from a snowbank, that the entire case rested on a folktale. Parker let him finish. Then she said, "Sir, I'd like to enter the folktale into evidence." And she put Lena Carter's fingerprints on the table. 10 point cards taken 4 days earlier from a body recovered under an overhang at Grid 4, 99112 matched to a service record that the United States Army had certified as destroyed. In March of a year, 6 years gone, matched again to a latent print lifted from the inside of a plastic bag containing a memory card, matched a third time to 11 latent prints lifted from a paper notebook containing 6 years of a colonel's voice written out by hand. Vance's counsel sat down. He never stood up again for the rest of the proceeding, and Mitchell watched him do it and understood that he was watching the exact moment a man realizes the ground under him has been gone for a while. They played the tape. They played all of it. 41 hours over 9 days, and the room got smaller every day because you cannot listen to a man be himself for 41 hours and keep believing he's a person who made a mistake. They played the empty compound. They played 2 years of reports about a building with nothing in it. They played a phone call in which a colonel called 8 American soldiers an administrative problem with a technical solution. They played drop it in on them. They played add 50. And on the 7th day, they played 9 words. Emily Parker did not editorialize. She said, "Sir, this is card 19, 4 hours and 11 minutes, 41 minutes after Ranger Actual's beacon activated." And she pressed play. "No assets available. Recommend closing the file." 7 seconds of nothing. And then mild, amused, comfortable, the sound of a man in a warm room. "Let them scream. The batteries die before they do." Nobody in that room moved. Mitchell was watching Vance's face. He had promised himself he wouldn't for 6 months, and on the 7th day he broke the promise, and he was glad he did because he got to see it. He got to see Aaron Vance hear his own voice. The colonel's chin came up just slightly, the way a man does when he's about to explain something. And then it stopped. And then something happened behind his eyes that Mitchell had no word for and would never have a word for, except that it was the first honest thing the man had done in 6 years. Vance looked around the room. He looked at 19 people who had known him. He was looking for one face. Just one. One person who was going to look back at him the way they had 2 weeks ago. There wasn't one. And Colonel Aaron Vance, who had never in his life raised his voice, put both hands flat on the table in front of him and did not take them off for the rest of the day. He was convicted on 11 counts. 2 other officers went with him. A third resigned 11 days before they got to him and was indicted anyway. 4 more retired quietly, and the retirements were not quiet at all. The sentence was read on a Thursday morning at 11 minutes past 9. Ryan Mitchell was in the room. He'd thought about it for months. He'd built it up. He had imagined the exact feeling, and when it came, he felt absolutely nothing. He walked out into the parking lot, and Brooks was there, and Bergstrom, and Kelly, and Ruiz, and Harding, and 11 other men from that valley who had driven in from 4 states, and they stood around in a parking lot in their dress uniforms, and nobody said a word because there was nothing to celebrate. A man was going to prison. That was all. That was the entire prize. 7 soldiers were still dead. Marcus Reyes was still dead, and a woman had still lain down under an overhang in the dark and folded a sheet around herself so that whoever found her wouldn't have to look at anything ugly. Harding said finally, "Sir, is that it?" And Mitchell said no. It took 11 more months. It took Emily Parker making 11 people ask questions, and then 111, and it took Danny Brooks sitting in front of a Senate committee with a soaked green notebook explaining to 7 senators in the plainest language any of them had ever heard why a machine gunner had been writing during a firefight. Because she was the only one talking to us. Everybody else quit. She didn't quit. So I wrote her down. That was the sentence. That was the one that went everywhere. That was the one 100 million people heard. Operation Silent Wolf was unsealed in April. The names came off a wall in a hide dug into a mountain and went onto a wall in a place where the public could stand in front of them. And 7 families found out 11 years too late for some of them what had actually happened to their sons. And on a Saturday in June in a small cemetery outside a town in Ohio that nobody has ever heard of, the United States Army did a thing it had never done in its history. It corrected a headstone. They took down the old one, the one with the wrong date, the one that had been a lie in stone for 6 years, the one a mother had knelt in front of twice a year while her daughter watched from 400 meters away with a rifle across her knees and no way on God's earth to tell her. Mitchell was there when they did it. He'd asked to be. He'd asked to carry it. Lena Carter's mother was 73 years old and about 5'2", and she did not cry once during the whole thing, and afterwards she took Ryan Mitchell's hand in both of hers and looked up at him with the same eyes and said, "She watched me?" Mitchell couldn't answer. "Captain, look at me." Her hands were very small and very hard. "Did my daughter watch me visit her grave?" "Yes, ma'am," Mitchell said. "She told me. On the radio. She said twice a year." The old woman nodded slowly, and then for the first time her face went. "6 years," she said. "She was 400 meters away, and she couldn't come and tell me. She sat out there and let me grieve her because she thought—" Her voice broke apart. "She thought if she came down, they'd finish it. Didn't she? She stayed out there to keep me safe." Mitchell's eyes were streaming, and he did not bother to do anything about it. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I think that's exactly right." Mrs. Carter looked at the new stone for a while. Then she said, 23 men. 22, ma'am. We lost Sergeant Reyes." 22. She nodded, and she carved his name. "Yes, ma'am." With a hole in her, the old woman's chin came up, and Mitchell saw exactly where Lena Carter had come from. She was bleeding to death, and she stopped to carve a boy's name in a rock so somebody would know he'd been there. "Yes, ma'am." "Good," said Mrs. Carter, and her voice was iron. "Good." Then she was still herself. "That's all I wanted to know." The story went where stories go. For a while it was everywhere, and then it was somewhere, and then it was in books, and the ghost story died, which was the point. Nobody in the regiment says, "Watch your comms," or "Ghost 7 will find you" anymore. They don't say it because it isn't a ghost story now. Now it's a name and a face and a photograph of 8 kids in front of a truck, and a woman who lived in a hole for 6 years and hung her socks on a line and built 19 boxes on a mountain for a person who was never coming. They put her hide on the historical register. The Army fought it for 11 months and lost. The socks are still on the line. That was Kelly's condition. He was very quiet about it and completely immovable, and in the end, nobody had the stomach to argue with him. Ryan Mitchell made major, and then he did something nobody expected, which was that he stopped. He turned down the school. He turned down the next thing and the thing after it. He took a job. Nobody wanted running communications doctrine for the regiment, and for 4 years he was the most boring officer in the United States Army, and he was very, very good at it. And every single ranger who came through his course learned one thing that was not in any manual. He'd stand up at the end of the last day and say, "There is no such thing as a frequency nobody's listening to. Somebody is always out there, and someday you're going to be on the wrong end of a radio, and you are going to key that handset and beg. And I want you to know right now in this room, while it's warm and nothing's wrong, that the begging is not shameful. The silence is. And then he'd let them go. 3 years and 11 months after Kestrel Valley on a Tuesday night in October, at 11 minutes past 2 in the morning, Major Ryan Mitchell was sitting in his garage with an old radio set he was absolutely not authorized to own, doing the thing he had done every night for 3 years and 11 months, which his wife knew about and never once mentioned. He listened to a dead frequency. He didn't call. He never called. He just left it on the way. You leave a porch light on for someone who is not coming home, and he sat there in a folding chair with a cup of coffee and listened to static. And that night at 11 minutes past 2, the static broke. Mitchell's hand stopped halfway to his cup. Ranger Actual. The voice was young, male, terrified. Ranger Actual, I don't know what this is, sir. I got this frequency off a warrant officer who got it off a sergeant named Brooks, and he told me if I was already dead, it cost nothing to try. Mitchell was already moving. Sir, we're pinned. I've got 4 guys and I've got 2 down, and command's not, sir. They're not answering. They're just not answering. Ryan Mitchell picked up the handset with a steady hand, and he looked at the wall of his garage where a photograph of 8 kids in front of a truck had hung for 3 years and 11 months, and he keyed up. Ghost 7 listening that he said, "Who needs me?" Because that was the thing nobody understood about Lena Carter, and it was the only thing that ever mattered. They took her name. They took her rank, her file, her date of death, her mother's Saturdays and 6 years of her one and only life, and they buried her twice and called her a rumor and expected her to stay in the ground. She didn't leave a legend. She left a frequency, and it has never gone silent again.